All right, everybody, how y'all doing? Quentin here from Tactical and Practical. Today we're going to reinstall the rear sight on a Henry 3030. As always, make sure your gun is in a safe condition. This gun is empty. Some of you have seen the video where I installed these tally rings, which I'm very happy with, and that Vanguard Endeavor scope. It's a great scope, super clear, but as some of you pointed out in the comments, it's way too much scope for this particular gun. So, how much scope do you need? It's a function of a couple questions. One, what are you going to be using the gun for? This gun is a working gun I take in the field to hunt with. Generally shots are 100 yards, maybe to 150. At the range, I can get on the paper within like an 8-inch pie plate at 200. I don't think I would probably take a 200-yard shot in the field with this gun. The bullets are just real ballistically, they're not super efficient, so they're affected by the wind. The drop I can account for, but the wind can really play havoc with these. But under the ideal conditions, I might try it. So basically, I need a scope that can get me out to 200 yards. That 4 by 16 by 44 was just big, and I mean maybe I could see the flea on a coyote's butt at 500 yards or something, but I'm never going to shoot this gun that far, so it didn't make any sense to have that scope on here. So I took the scope off. I'm currently kind of debating the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 1:6 or another Vanguard product, which is a 2 to 8 by 32. The real question for me is, do I want a 24mm objective lens and the true 1x visual, which would be like iron sights or a red dot, or do I want the larger objective lens and lose the true 1x? So really, when you're thinking about your scope, what are you going to use it for? If you're at 4x and you see a deer at 100 yards, at 4x, it's like shooting the deer at 25 yards. If you can shoot a deer at 25 yards and your average shot's 100 yards, 4x might just be enough for you. At 4x at 200 yards, it's like shooting the pig at 50 yards. If you can make a 50-yard shot with open sights, that 4x might be enough. I like a little bit more maybe, so the 1:6 gives me a little bit more flexibility there, but 2 to 8 possibly. That's why the 3 to 9 scope is so popular on so many hunting rifles. It can do the job for a wide range of applications. The only downside of the 3x, now that I'm thinking, I've reversed my thinking from the larger objective lens and higher powers to lower powers, it'd be nice to have a true 1x magnifier in the equation so it could function like a red dot. The architecture of these scopes is such that getting a true 1x adds some engineering complications, and from my limited understanding of light refraction, and this is also why many of those 1x scopes have that smaller objective lens, is the larger the objective lens gets, the angle of the rays of light that come in all need to be funneled down into that 1x, and you begin to get aberrations because you are trying to transpose a larger picture down to a true 1x picture, and that has some, like I said, some engineering complications. So really, and most of you probably already know this, right? But we'll go over it just super briefly. And I pardon my poor artwork, but here's your eyeball. All right, so once you know what you're going to do with the gun, how far are you going to shoot the gun, what kind of magnification do you need to shoot? To me, that's maybe 4 times, 6 times, maybe 8 times max. The other big variable to be concerned with is the exit pupil. This is the eyepiece on a scope, and this is your eye. The exit pupil simply refers to the width of the beam of light that shoots out of that exit pupil and into your eye pupil, right? Simple, one of the more simple formulas when it comes to optical calculations. To understand how big this exit pupil is, you simply take the size of your objective lens over here and divide it by whatever magnification setting you have, and that is the size of this beam of light. So on a 24mm objective, 1 to 6, if you have it set at 1, the exit pupil is 24, and if you have it set at 6, the exit pupil is 4 millimeters. If you have it set on the 4-time setting, then you're getting 6 millimeters. Why is this important? Well, it's important because your eyeball can only take in so much light, okay? And it's largely a function of how dilated your pupil is at any given time. In the brightest light of sun, you might be at a 1.55 mil, 2 millimeter. On a cloudy day, you might be at 2.5 millimeter. And in the magic hour, dusk, dawn, when the critters are out and you really want to get a shot, in pure darkness, you might be at a 7 millimeter, maybe an 8 millimeter, probably closer to a 7. And as we age, these numbers change. And you also have to remember that while your pupil may be in a relaxed condition, and when it's very dark, when you see something that you think might be a viable target, your adrenaline kicks in and there's a pretty likely chance that this number goes down a little bit. When your eyeballs begin to get ready for action and they flex a little bit, this may shrink. So the absolute most light you can use is probably a 7 millimeter beam, right? So if I'm on 4 millimeters, if I have 4 millimeters of light shooting at my eye, if I'm on 4x on a 24, that means I am generating 6 mils of light, which is almost the maximum that my eyeball can take in. If you're at 24 if I'm on 1x and I'm generating 24 millimeters of light, all that light just comes here and bounces away and goes away, because it is all about the relationship between how dilated your eye is and how big that light beam is that's shooting towards it. So when you're thinking of 50 millimeter objective lenses, it makes sense if you're going to be at, say, 12 times, because that gets you just over 4 millimeters. That's why, to me, I was kind of torn between the 1x6 and the 2 to 8 by 32, because then if I'm on 6, I have 5.2, maybe a little bit over 5 millimeters of light, whereas if I'm on 6 on the 1x24, I only have 4 millimeters of light. So basically, the effective loss to me is 1 millimeter, which isn't great, but in percentage terms, it's kind of significant. So when you're thinking about buying your scope, you want to think about, what am I going to use it for? What kind of magnification do I need to achieve the desired results? And then what kind of exit pupil is this thing going to generate? And then you also want to think about glass clarity, optical clarity, etc. Those are also considerations. We are now going to go ahead. So I'm changing the scope size down. So I've already removed the top half of the rings and the scope, which I sold. I probably could have put it on my 243, but it's got something on there already. So we've got these tally bases on, which are simple to remove. When I mounted that larger scope, I had removed the rear sight. Now I want to reinstall it. A couple of reasons I want to reinstall it. The new scope can live with the rear sight intact. So if the rear sight is intact and functioning properly, and my scope fails on a trip, I can remove the scope and the bases and still have an accurate rifle. The other reason is that since I've kind of made the turn to this minimalist approach, particularly to a short, easy handling brush gun, I'm even debating if I want to have any optic on this thing at all. They're Skinner peep sights. Skinner makes a sight that goes right here that is an aperture, kind of like a ghost ring but smaller. It's about it's less than an inch is the opening. And the idea is that the magic of your eye, when it looks through the aperture and sees the bead, your eye will automatically try to center that bead in the peep and put you on target. I'm a little scared about making the jump all the way to peep from big glass. So what I thought I would do is go ahead and install the rear sight, remove the bases, go to the range, shoot it with the semi-buckhorns that it came with, and see how I do. And if I do well enough, then I may just put a peep sight on this thing and avoid the glass altogether. If I don't do well, then we will install one of those two scopes that I had just discussed. One thing that you want to be aware of is that you know, you take something off of a gun and you decide you want to put it back on, you got to find it. And you got to find all the parts that went with it. A lot of times that involves little tiny baby screws. I recommend if you ever decide to take a part off of your gun that you very well may want to put back on, you put it in a Ziploc bag and label it, and then put it somewhere safe. I did that with this. However, I also had a bunch of other little screws in the bag, which caused a little confusion. Okay, let's drift in our buckhorn, semi-buckhorn, rear sight on a Henry 30-30. It's a two-parter. You got the main piece here, which is the actual semi-buckhorn, and then you have the elevation slide, and you slide that up or down to achieve your elevation. This is a dovetailed groove right there, and this marries up nicely to this little blob here. There is one screw. It does not screw into this barrel of the gun. It is a set screw that simply applies downward pressure to hold this in the dovetail. You need to be able to loosen it so that you can drift it left and right to adjust your windage. And then obviously this is your elevation. So to do this, now typically they recommend a brass punch and a brass mallet. The idea here is that brass is not as strong as steel, and so if you were to miss and hit the gun, the brass would dent before the steel would, because you don't want to mar up your gun. This is where the practical part of tactical and practical comes in. I don't have a brass punch. They're kind of expensive, and they don't really sell, that I found. I couldn't buy one. I had to buy like a 3-pack. And I certainly don't have a brass mallet. The way that I removed this is I found a suitably sized piece of plastic. I lined it up, and I whack it with a normal hammer to drift it out. Drifting these sights out means you go towards the receiver, so to drift them in, you go back the other way. The reason I'm putting this sticker here on the barrel is because as I drift it in, this elevation adjustment is going to slide across the metal barrel of the gun, and as that happens, I do not want to scratch or mar the barrel, right? So I put this sticker, or you could use a playing card. Okay, I got it started. You put the sticker on here so that when it slides across the barrel, it will not mar the barrel. So it appears that I've got that dovetail started nicely. I put my piece of plastic on here and tap it. That's what we're doing. Make much progress there. Make sure we're lined up. I might even be able to slide this elevation piece on after the fact. Or not. Okay, so we'll try it again. Just the thing here is take your time, whatever you do. Take your time. You do not want to slip with your hammer. And you do not want to hit the gun or the wooden fore of your gun with the hammer. If you don't like how it's lined up, stop and start over again. I don't have a tipped-in vise. This is just my lead sled. Again, this is the practical part of tactical and practical. You know, I know there are a lot of specialty tools involved in gunsmithing that you can buy, but for the average Joe, I'm not using these enough to justify necessarily buying all the specialty tools that can be involved in this. It's very tempting to tap that dovetail right with the hammer, but I think that would be the kiss of death for this, so we're not going to do it, no matter how tempting it is. We're just going to continue to get it. I think if I get it lined up just right, and I give it one good tap, and really get it started in that channel, which I think now it is, we'll be on our way. While I'm doing that, I'm going to kind of keep this piece moving over, so it's sliding on with me. That elevation adjustment. We're halfway home, I believe. Keep it rolling. Probably the worst thing that could happen would be this plastic jobber break on me, and then I would strike the weapon. All right. You got to give it a little force. I mean, I'm not being gentle. We're almost there. Maybe one more of those. Now really what we want to do, we'll see like that. I almost missed it and caused a big problem. That's where it comes to taking your time. Okay, I'm almost all the way in the slot. I'm going to get it close to center. So that's probably where I need it to be to start shooting today. So I need to go over a little more. It's still protruding a little bit on this side. That's getting closer. All right. See, if you feel both sides, you'll feel that dovetail. And if you feel the opening on one side and the insert on the other, you know you got a little bit to go still. That's real close. I'm going to go like one more tap. And okay. Now if you feel with your fingernail, you can really, I mean, our bodies are precision instruments. Gun Blue talks about this. And a lot of the guys that talk about iron sights talk about this. If you feel with your fingertip, the left side and the right side, you can get a pretty good guess as to if it's dead center or not. Just feel it, and where you feel the overhang, if you want to be center, you just need to match. That's really close. I think this side is still just a hair over, so we're going to give it one more. And see, this is just to get me in the ballpark, right? I got to go to the range and check this out. All right, so I mean, it's obviously unscientific or non-scientific, but I'm all about what works. Knowing that this thing, all right, that's it right there. That might have been one too many. But I think I can live with that. So that's it. Now it's in, and you notice all that time when you see that this elevation setting here was not rubbing on the barrel of the gun, so hopefully that prevents us from marring it. Take some pressure off of here and pull that out. Okay, that's it. There you go. I did inquire with a couple folks. They thought, if they remembered correctly from the factory, their semi-buckhorn was on the lowest setting, and now I'm eyeballing it. There's two screws here. There's two mounting screws for each of these bases, right? So these screw holes were machined in to this receiver at the factory. These were drilled and tapped at the factory to accommodate this. So I know that that line is straight, right? So if I look down that line and I see that buckhorn, if it's dead center, it looks like it might be just a little bit right. There's a diamond bead on the rear semi-buckhorn sight, and basically, if that diamond bead is centered with where these machined holes were drilled and tapped at the Henry factory, that should be a straight line with that bead, because that's what they were lining it up to, right? I am going to try to move this over a little bit more. I'm going to have to be a little extra careful now because I don't have my little playing card trick in there anymore. But when I see the videos of people drifting these to adjust them, they are not using the playing card trick. I just did that for the full installation because I knew I was going to be tapping on it quite a few times. There are probably gunsmiths cringing watching me do this with this hammer. That's real close. No, I think that's dead center. It's maybe off by a 16th. But that's it. Now the rear sight has been drifted back in. I'm simply going to remove these bases, go to the range and shoot it with this semi-buckhorn rear sight and see how I do. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to put it on the bull at 25, 50. I think I'll be in the vital kill zone at 100 for sure. This gun really shoots tight groups, so it's really going to be all about me. I think that's on the money right there. If I really wanted to get snazzy, I could take a string, tie it back here to the hammer, and if that string is lined up with all these factory drilled holes, line it up to the brass bead factory install, and then look at where that diamond is hanging over it, that would be oh, that's supposed to. That would really give me a check to make sure that I'm on, but I'm just looking at it with my eye and I'm on. So that's really all you have to do. It might be the tiniest bit over the side now. That's really all you have to do to drift this back thing in. I would just recommend you exercise extreme caution. If you have any concerns about your ability to strike this thing reliably and not miss and hit your gun, you should probably invest in the brass stuff. The brass punch, the brass hammer, all that jazz. But if this is for you, something that, I mean, once this thing's back installed, it's hard to get an angle, I'm gonna have to flip the camera around. Once this thing's installed, I don't ever have to take it off again, because whether or not, although I might remove it if I end up going with that rear peep sight, but whatever optic that I go with now is going to be such that it can live on here with this rear semi-buckhorn sight right where it is now. We give it one more tap on the back, but that's it. I won't keep you guys any further. You got the idea. I think it's important to put something on there so that it won't mar or scratch your gun as this elevation adjustment slides back out of the barrel as you drift in that rear sight. And that's it. People have been killing deer and hogs and rabbits with buckhorn, semi-buckhorn sights for a long time. They kind of get lambasted. I guess there was a couple guys in the early 1900s that really didn't like them. I don't know if I love it or not. The Skinner peep sight gets such rave reviews that that's probably the direction that I will go if I don't put glass on here. But to know if I'm comfortable enough living with no optic, I need to at least shoot these before I invest in a peep and install it. So that's it. Drift in a rear semi-buckhorn sight into the dovetail in your Henry 3030. Pretty straightforward. Oh, don't forget, after you have it where you want to tighten down that set screw as well. I just use a standard set of mini screwdrivers to do it, and then that sets your windage, and it won't drift on you without you releasing the pressure on that set screw and then doing it again. So make sure you loosen that before you install it, and then you want to tighten it back down afterwards. Pretty straightforward installation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll let you know how it goes at the range today with the semi-buckhorn. And if you like this or got some use out of it, please take the time to like the video or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all you guys for coming and watching, and hopefully we can just keep these things coming, and looking forward to getting this thing even more dialed in than it already was. So thank you. Good day.